Before the first bounce on Friday night, West Coast ran out a banner, and on that banner they took a shot at Murphy Reid. They called him the other Reid. 2.5 hours later, the other Reid was standing in the middle of Optus Stadium holding the Glendinning-Allan Medal with 8 votes out of a possible 9. This is Wharf Talk. I'm JB. Western Derby 63, and it went about as well as it possibly could have. Fremantle 112, West Coast 42, a 70-point win and 56,616 people through the gates. That is the biggest home and away crowd for a Fremantle home game ever. Here's the part nobody really wants to admit. For a half, West Coast were fine, genuinely fine. They led at quarter time 19-18. They trailed by only 8 at the main break, and the reason it was that close is that Fremantle spent 40 minutes kicking at goal like they were being charged a fee for every accurate shot. 5 goals, 10 behinds at half time, 33% conversion. The Dockers had 10 more inside 50s than the Eagles and were somehow still in a contest. It started early. Luke Jackson wins the opening tap of the game and puts it straight to Tim Kelly. Perfect start. Heath Chapman gets the first shot at goal, misses, and then Michael Frederick misses from what I can only describe as point blank range, directly in front. The kind of distance where the goal umpire is already standing there, tapping his foot, waiting for you to get on with it. You'd have been forgiven for thinking he'd turned up in somebody else's boots. Meanwhile, the Eagles kicked the first goal of the night, and it was actually a lovely piece of football. Kick out, Harley Reid picks out Tom Cole running forward. Cole handballs over the top to Elliot Yeo, and Yeo hits Hamish Davis standing all alone, 40 metres out, directly in front, nobody within a postcode of him. Fremantle answered back through Patrick Voss from a free kick after Harley Reid bumped Matt Johnson late. Voss then turned around and worked the crowd, which is a very Patrick Voss thing to do. And speaking of free kicks, at quarter time the count was 7-2 Fremantle's way, which meant Harley Reid spent the quarter time break having a long conversation with the umpire about it. Now, I want to be fair here. Harley Reid does cop a lot. There is a genuine argument to be had about the gap between what he's allowed to do and what gets done to him. Fair enough. He finished the night with 4 free kicks against him. Draw your own conclusions. Milan Murdoch opened the second term with a lovely snap after West Coast won the ball back, with Harley Reid, Ryan Marrick and Elliot Yeo all involved in the carry, and that goal gave West Coast a 7-point lead 1 minute and 4 seconds into the second quarter. Now write that number down, 7 points. That was the Eagles' biggest lead of the entire night. Their empire lasted roughly as long as it takes to reheat leftovers. Then Jay Amiss decided he'd had enough. 3 goals in the second quarter, bullying his opponent in a way that was genuinely uncomfortable to watch if you were wearing blue and gold. And the best passage of the half went like this. Fremantle wins the clearance, wins the follow-up contest on the wing, and Murphy Reid just launches it forward into space. Patrick Voss steps around 2 Eagles with a bit of swagger and puts it on a plate for Amiss running back towards goal. Back pocket to forward pocket, that is the Dockers at their absolute best. Jack Williams broke a 3-goal Fremantle run with one of his own in his 50th game. Half-time, Fremantle 40, West Coast 32, and it felt closer than it should have been because it was. Then the second half happened. Fremantle kicked 5-1 in the third term. West Coast kicked 1 goal in the entire second half. 1. And they were scoreless in the last quarter. The second half score was Fremantle 72, West Coast 10. That's not a football score, that's a printing error. It started with Josh Treacy attacking a ball at pace on the boundary line and simply not being able to stop. Momentum takes him clean over the fence into the bar. He then has to be helped back onto the ground by members of the public who came along for a football game and got a 2-metre key forward in their laps, gone for a drink. And honestly, at that stage of the evening, why not? Then came the passage of play that decided the medal. Murphy Reid picks the ball up and hits Isaiah Dudley inside 50 with a clever low kick under absolutely no pressure whatsoever, because West Coast had apparently decided to let him do whatever he liked all evening. Dudley goals, then minutes later Reid gets it again on the wing, burns off his opponent, gives and goes, and kicks a running goal from 50 metres out. That is a legitimate Goal of the Year candidate. West Coast called him the other Reid on a banner in his own stadium before a ball had been bounced. He then played the best 40 minutes of football on the ground and took 8 of the 9 available votes. I've watched a lot of derbies. I have never seen a setup and a punchline land that cleanly. Michael Frederick got his own back in the same quarter. Fremantle's forward pressure forces a West Coast turnover. The ball spills to Freddie, and from range, on the move, he threads a snap that had no business going through, and the way he kicked it. Up on the toes, one leg swung through behind him, arms out, balanced on nothing at all. A ballerina kick. There is no no other word for it. Found his own boots. After all, Jake Waterman finally got one out the back late in the term to spare West Coast a goalless quarter. It was his fourth touch of the night. We'll come to that. Somewhere in there, Harley Reid caught Matt Johnson with an elbow to the midriff and dropped him to the turf. The last quarter was a formality. Shea Bolton lined up a set shot and produced the single worst kick of the night, a shank that very nearly missed his boot entirely, and it was so bad and so unexpected that it wrong-footed every player in the vicinity, including his own teammates, which left Nathan O'Driscoll standing completely alone to snap an uncontested goal in his 50th game. That is the season Fremantle are having. Even the shanks are working. Sam Switkowski crumbed another one seconds later after Treacy spoiled Rhett Bazo from behind powerfully, and I'd say about 70% legally. Mason Cox brought up Fremantle's 100th point with a left foot finish out of the ruck contest that involved every limb he owns operating completely independently of the others. 25 hit outs on the night, which was more ruck taps than Luke Jackson managed. And then Mason Cox celebrated at the opposition, as Mason Cox does. Harley Reid had some thoughts about that. Words were exchanged, and it was the flashpoint of the night. Now, let me give you the statistic that actually explains this football match, because it isn't the margin. Disposal efficiency across the whole game. Fremantle 77.8%, West Coast 77.1%. Essentially identical. Both teams used the football well. Efficiency inside 50. Fremantle 65.4%. West Coast 37.1%. That's it. That's the whole game. West Coast could move the ball beautifully right up until the exact moment it mattered, at which point they seemed to forget what they were there for. And it gets better. West Coast actually won total disposals 375 to 370. They won the marks 116 to 87. More of the football, more of the marking contest, and beaten by 70 points because all of it was uncontested possession accumulated across half back. Fremantle won the contested possessions by 22, inside 50s by 17, marks inside 50 14 to 7, and time in front for the match. Fremantle 94 minutes and 21 seconds, West Coast 19 minutes and 20 seconds. Here's a detail I really love. Centre clearances finished 15 to 9 Fremantle's way. Stoppage clearances finished dead level, 22 each. So Fremantle's entire clearance advantage came from centre bounces, which is exactly where they put Bolton. On the other side of it, Harley Reid finished with 12 clearances, which was game high. He also had 10 clangers, and at three-quarter time he had 8 of West Coast's clearances, while the next best Eagle had 3. One player carrying a quarter of his team's contest work, and that's not a compliment to him, that's an indictment of everyone around him. Now the players. Matt Johnson led Fremantle with 29 disposals, 6 clearances, 5 tackles and 6 free kicks won. He also spent time on Harley Reid. Named first in Fremantle's best players, enormous game. Jai Amis, 5 goals from 15 disposals and 8 marks. Caleb Sarong, 26 disposals and 7 clearances. Andrew Brayshaw, 25 disposals and 7 tackles. Luke Ryan and Luke Jackson, both excellent. And Jake Waterman, this is the one that should genuinely worry West Coast. 5 disposals, 5. He kicked 5 goals against Brisbane last week. Alex Pearce did that to him. That is what elite defensive accountability looks like, and Pearce organised that whole back six around him all night. Job Shanahan, 6 disposals and no goals. For West Coast, Marcus Herbert was their best player by a distance. 36 disposals, 8 marks, 20 of them in the first half alone. Tim Kelly had 31 and 9 marks. Those two are genuinely good. 4 milestones on the night. Oscar McDonald played his 100th game. 11 seasons, 3 clubs and a full year out of the AFL system entirely, and he gets named in Fremantle's best players in a derby. Nathan O'Driscoll, 50th game, 2 goals. Carl Warner, 50th game. And for West Coast, Jack Williams played his 50th and kicked 2, the only Eagle to kick more than 1 all night. Now the serious part. Late in the game, Oliver Francoux was stretchered off. He was caught in a tackle on Andrew Brayshaw, and it appears his own studs raked down his leg and opened it up badly. It looked awful. He went off to applause from the entire ground, which was exactly the right response from a Perth crowd. West Coast will confirm the extent of it in the coming days. Nobody should be putting a timeline on that injury until they do, and we won't. We wish him a straightforward recovery, and the match review office is expected to look at that Harley Reid elbow on Matt Johnson. That's all we know, and that's all we'll say. No outcome until they report. 3 things to carry into next week. Fremantle was outscored in the first quarter again. That's a pattern now, not an incident. Does it survive contact with a top 4 side? And the kicking. 5 goals, 10 behinds before half-time, 11 goals, 6 behinds after it. Is that a structural fix from the coaching box, or is it just variance on the night? Because one of those answers matters in September. September, and the other one really doesn't. And we won't be waiting long to find out, because it's another Friday night at Optus, round 21, the Western Bulldogs, next Friday the 31st, 6:10. Back-to-back Friday night home games, and it's lights and sirens round. The Dogs play Richmond at Marvel Stadium on Saturday night, so we'll know a lot more about where they're at by the time we sit down on Tuesday. But here's the thing worth sitting with. Fremantle gave up the first quarter on Friday night to a side sitting near the bottom of the ladder, and it cost them nothing because West Coast couldn't make them pay for it. The Bulldogs can make you pay for it. Same start next week, and it's a very different second half. Fremantle sits on top of the ladder. A record crowd turned up and got a second half to remember. 70 points and a scoreless final quarter from the Eagles, and Murphy Reid holding the Glendinning-Allan Medal after West Coast printed his name on a banner and called him the other one. The only thing better than winning a derby is winning it like that. That's Wharf Talk. I'm JB. We'll do the full review on Tuesday, and we'll get you ready for the Dogs. Until then, go Dockers.